All right, we are going to get started. If you could mute your Zoom until you'd like to ask questions, we'll have time for questions at the end. And so there are people that are continuing to come into the room, which is great. We are going to get started, first of all, just by giving you guys a little heads up about how this conversation or this presentation will work. I'm going to really kind of break the presentation down into two parts. The first part is just understanding, what it is to be recruited. How does one get their name out? What kinds of things do you need to do to be recruited? And then the second part of that is what are some of the regulations and like the rules for the NCAA and Ncaa, and as far as like, what do you need to do to be recruited? What do you need to do to get your name out there? Or on the academic side of things, what kinds of classes do you need to take? What kind of grades do you need to have? What kind of scores do you need to score in order to get to where you want to be? Okay, so again, if you could mute your Zoom, that would be great so that we can continue. All right, on the screen right now, there is a slide here talking about what it takes to be a college athlete. And so it's just like, you got to ask yourself some hard questions. First of all, what level do I want to be at? What's an honest assessment of what I can do? And so you have to talk to your coaches. You got to talk to your high school coaches. You got to talk to your club coaches, your travel team coaches, all those different types of coaches that you are, that you have throughout the seasons. And you got to find out what is their assessment of where your abilities are. You also have to consider playing time versus division, because you might be able to play more at a D3 level, but you could maybe get into a D2 school and sit the bench for 3-4 years before maybe you get to start as a senior. And so you have to kind of understand what it takes. What do you want out of the college situation? Do you want to say that you went to this school and not play, or do you want to play and go to a school that maybe is your second or third choice? So that's something you got to think about too. You got to be honest about desire, because it becomes your job to be a college athlete, and depends on the level. If you go to Division I, it is your job. I mean, you are expected 24/7, 365 to be that college athlete. Once you get to D2, D3, the expectations for the athlete drops a bit. There's a lot of information about time management, what's required for that athlete when you go to the website where I'm gonna share with you guys in a little bit. And it kind of gives you a rundown of what the expectations are for the athlete. And it helps you make a decision. Do I wanna be, maybe I wanna really focus on my career. I'm gonna go to college to become a doctor. I'm gonna go to med school. That's my plan. But I'm also a D1 athlete. Is that something I wanna balance out? Because there's a lot of time that goes into your education as well. So that's something to think about. It's going to be way more intense than high school. More intense competition, obviously. Time management, I talked about. Program, coach, make sure you know, do you like the coach? Don't just think, oh man, this one D1 top level school is recruiting me, or let's just say, let's be more realistic, D2. And this prestigious school, I don't really like the coach, but I want to go to this school. You may not be happy there. So you got to make decisions based on who the coach is. Do you like the program? Is that a place you want to be? There's so many other factors to consider when you're trying to determine what kind of athlete do you want to be, or where do you want to go? Okay, and of course, priorities as far as degree goes. We mentioned this a second ago with, if you're wanting to go into med school, and I know that the education, the academic side of things, once you get to college, are going to be a lot more strict. And your priorities might be, I want to make sure I do well in this program so I can graduate and get this degree and move on with my life. Well, that's going to affect your ability to spend time on your sport. And so you have to consider that. And you got to think about, does that school have the degree I want to be in? So. Okay, what are coaches looking for? Athletic ability is big, obviously. How you perform on the high school court, field, whatever. But they're also looking at academics. That's a big one. Okay, athletic ability is kind of like a no-brainer, but I think academics as well as it is a no-brainer. But a lot of students don't think about the academic side of things at times until it's too late. And so it's important to focus on that now. So I don't know, the audience I have today, I know there are some just kind of seeing people who are coming in. I don't know what grade everybody's in. If you're younger, 9th grade, 10th grade, it's still early in the process. We'll talk about kind of a timeline, what kinds of things to focus on as far as academics go. If you're a junior, a senior, which I think there's a few of you out there, it's later in the process. Academics, hopefully that has been a priority for you, but academics are going to open up options for you with where you want to go. Team needs and positions, character, work ethic, teamwork. These are all things, all characteristics of an athlete that coaches are going to look at. I've heard college coaches talk about players that they came to recruit and then did not like their behavior on the court, or they weren't a team guy or team girl. They were sitting back, they weren't in the game, they weren't focused on their teammates. Those kind of things they notice. And if you're not a high character person, they'll pass you off and they'll go on to the next person. There are thousands of people potentially trying to do the same things that you're trying to do. And they might have options. If they don't like something they see about character, they might just move on to the next person. All right, as far as the recruiting process, it's a long process. This is largely directed by the parents, the family, the student athlete. It is important that you get as much information and knowledge about that process and to improve your chance at playing to the college of your choice. Some of you are probably deep into the process and you understand what's expected. Your coaches have talked to you about what is expected. As far as game film, that would be something I would ask you to ask your coaches about and to rely on them for these types of things, because they can direct you to what kind of platforms, crossover, huddle. Those are some of the ones that are the more common ones, I believe, that coaches are maybe using as game film. Well, in some cases, you can have an account for the player and they can kind of create their own game film. So just talk to the coaches about how exactly that would work. Of course, get your name out there, be present, go to showcases, go to camps, play in these out of high school season type sports, but kind of get out there and be seen. And there are lots of people. The whole travel club scene has grown exponentially over the last 20, 30 years. It was not the way that it is today when I was in school. I can guarantee that. We had AAU, we had that type of stuff, but the pressure to be on those teams were not as big. I think those pressures are a lot higher today, but that is where you get a lot of exposure. All right, be realistic about your abilities. We mentioned this before. Be honest, get an honest assessment from your coaches. Who's showing interest? How do you gain that interest? You need to be proactive. You need to get onto websites. You need to fill out questionnaires. You need to email coaches. Okay, you can at any point, starting your freshman year, you can email coaches. They cannot until your junior year, June 15th, after your sophomore year. So going into junior year, that is the point at which they can start to contact you, but you can contact them up to that point. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, make yourself marketable. Like I said, be proactive. We also mentioned this before. You're competing against thousands of different athletes potentially at that same, for those types of positions. Separate yourself by eliminating obstacles. Make it easy on the coach. Don't make them search out information on you. Okay. So fill out questionnaires, email coaches, provide game links to game film. Like I said, huddle, crossover. I don't know. Those are the ones that I've known about in the past. There might be new things out there that you guys are using. Parents probably are also filming you. You should use that. I think in today's day and age, it's probably a lot easier to create these game film these clips that you can then upload to things like YouTube. Okay, so more on that. What is game film? It's a snapshot of who you are as a player, and it doesn't apply to every kind of sport. I understand that, but if we focus on like team sports, like football, baseball, basketball, volleyball, and things like that, you want to create clips of you specifically doing things. You don't want to say, "This is the game we played in December of 2020." Okay, they're not going to want to piece through all that. You got to provide short clips, short snippets of who you are. Okay, so they want to see all kinds of features about your game. And I don't know, with volleyball, you know, for our one student who is here today, I feel like I'm just talking to all of you, just to you, but I know there's a lot of people out there. For volleyball, your coaches can kind of direct you, like, what kind of things do these people want to see? Me as a former basketball coach, I could speak to the basketball game a lot more. That's what a lot of this is dealing with. As far as football goes, you might play one side of the ball. You want to see in the clip many different aspects of your game. Okay, that's kind of the key. YouTube is a great site for that, to create your own clips and to upload onto that. You can create a link you can send to the coach. They can click on that link and watch that 3 to 6 minute video very quickly. All right, I've been showing this the last 2 years. I might as well show it again. I think we got enough time to do this. This is just a kind of an example of what that clip might be. I'll just show you a few minutes of it. There's a link here. This is a kid who played at a school in Indianapolis where I used to be. I'm going to turn that volume down. That was pretty loud. Sorry about that. So this is his clip, and I'm no sound here. Okay, so we can see who he is. Okay, and then he shoots the three. Okay, another short clip coming up. Okay, we know he's number 12, so we're looking for him to make plays. There's another play. So he's got shooting three, making layups, shot off the dribble. Okay, finishing under the basket, getting his own rebound. So all these different kinds of things, different aspects of his game, and he's creating these little clips, and that's all it is. And so his is only, this is a minute 54. So just a real short clip. It's out there. People can search for you on YouTube. You can send the link to whoever you'd like. It's a really easy way to get your game film out. All right, so enough of that. Let's move on back to the presentation here. Okay. All right, and if you have questions at any point, just please save those for later, or you could even, if you're zooming in, type in questions and we can answer those questions at the end. Okay, on the screen here is just an FYI of like, just kind of give you a realistic idea of what the stats are for playing baseball, playing whatever sport, pick a sport. How many high school participants are there? This is the most updated information I could get. So here's all of the different thousands of people who are playing in the different sports. This is just boys. Okay, the next screen will be girls. Who is playing in the NCAA? So of the 482,000 or more baseball players in high school sports around the nation, 36,000 made it to the NCAA, which is all levels, 1, 2, and 3. That percentage is 7.5%. Okay, how many of those are D1? 2.2. How many of those are D2? 2.3, 2.9. So this is just a breakdown, just to show you the realistic nature of playing a college sport. You are not granted this when you're born. This doesn't just come to you. You have to earn it. You have to make it a serious effort on your part. There's a lot that goes into it. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it. And one of the things that I want to focus on coming up here soon is the academic side of things. And we spent a lot of time just in the last few minutes talking about, you know, what do you need to do to get noticed, recruited, all that stuff. But as far as the academic side of things, which is as important, that kind of sets you apart as a student athlete. And that's the thing we want to focus on coming up here. Here's the girls. So any ice hockey or lacrosse players out there, because the percentages are much higher. 26.2, 12.5. So I guess you all need to learn how to play ice hockey and lacrosse is, I think, the key here. All right, how about pro? How many pro athletes do we have out there? Well, probably not too many. Pro is hard to do. Okay, I think back to a quick story about myself. I remember specifically in 6th grade telling my mom that I was going to play college. My plan, Mom, is to play NBA basketball. I was going to go to the NBA because that was my love at the time, the sport I loved to play. I even told my mom, I remember telling her specifically that I need the Larry Johnson Grandma Maz, which is I don't know if you know, you old people out there in the audience might know who that is, but he had a shoe that was so cool in whatever, 1992, 1993, whenever it was. And I wanted that shoe because it was going to help me get to the NBA. Like, that's how I was thinking. I found out quickly soon after that I was not good enough to be an NBA player, which is true for about almost everybody here at the school. So here are some of the statistics for going pro. Very, very unlikely. So we got to keep our priorities straight. We go to college for the academics. We have to get there with the academics. Is there a chance we can play in a professional sport? Sure, but it's low. All right, so focus on the academic side of things. This I got from Mr. I got his name here. Having a mind blank here. David Wall, who presented it from CCU, he put this out back in September, and I stole it from him, borrowed it with permission, actually. 4.0 GPA, a lot of schools want you. As that GPA drops, less and less schools want you. As you get down to the lowest GPAs, they don't care. Okay, you could be a great student or a great athlete, but if you're not a great student, they'd rather bother with somebody who is a better student. Same abilities. This person gets a 3.5. This person gets a 2.0. We're going to go with 3.5. Why do you think that is? They don't want to mess with a person who might get there, who will struggle each semester to try to make their grades and potentially could not be on the team. Also, a lot of those college coaches they actually have this, I don't know if they have any kind of incentive, but they want their team to have a high GPA. And that is something that they take pride in. And so if you do well in high school, you're likely to do well in college. Your GPA is going to affect if you're going to be recruited or not. As we move on, we're going to focus mostly on the NCAA, but I wanted to put this out here for you all to see some of the statistics, or not statistics. These are this is information about the NAIA, which is kind of like the NCAA, less restrictions as far as getting in. There are not as many colleges that are NAIA, so you can see kind of where they would be, close to Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas. A lot of schools in those parts throughout the country, 257 total. As far as eligibility requirements, all you have to do is meet 2 of the 3, which is 16 ACT or 860 SAT. Okay, not super high. Cumulative GPA of 2.0 or higher, and you have to be in the top or be in the top half of your class. So if you can meet 2 of those 3 standards, you have freshman eligibility requirements. Now your coach might say, oh, I'd prefer you be higher than a 2.0, but that is the minimum requirement for the NAIA. So a lot fewer restrictions. They don't have as many rules. So I will not tell you the acronym that I was told NAIA stood for back when I was in school. But in other words, it has something to do with the fact that there's very few restrictions, and so you can get pretty much anybody into NAIA. But there are a lot of good schools that are NAIA. It is a good option. They can actually give you scholarship money, so that is a positive for NAIA schools. Okay, NCAA, 3 divisions, 1, 2, and 3. Most of us know about the 1, 2, and 3 NCAA divisions. 1 largest, 2 intermediate, and 3 is smaller colleges tend to be ones that cannot give you money, scholarship money that is athletic, but they can find you money in other areas. So it's not like they can't give you money to play there. They just have to, they help you find, I know coaches for a fact will help you find maybe some academic money or this scholarship or that scholarship, but none of it is athletic based at D3. Okay. So this is where I get to one of my first things. As you came in, there's a sheet that says student registration on it. And I will, for those of you who are Zooming, I will show you where this is in the student guide. But here is just kind of the Cliff Notes version of this, the smaller version of it. You should, if you're interested in playing sports, you should make an account. You should set up either a certification account or a profile page through the eligibilitycenter.org site. It is a free thing to set up a profile page. In fact, they suggest that everybody, ninth graders, especially 9th and 10th graders, as you start to kind of come into high school, to set a profile page. You can always convert that later to a certification account, especially if you're not sure where you want to play, at what level you want to play, and you don't want to spend the $90 right away. So start the profile page. If you're 9th grader or 11th or 12th grader and you're D3 or undecided, profile page for sure. If you know your D1, D2 have specific coaches that have taught you, you have a high interest in it, you want to set up a certification account if you have not, ASAP. Okay. Usually sophomore year is when they say to kind of make that registration. So by sophomore year, at some point, you should make an account. Although some of the new information is saying they want freshmen to create a profile page right away. So that you can do for free. It's easy. You can convert it back to a certification account. Okay. Division I standards. Basically, I want to focus here on Division I and then go to Division II. And we'll do this relatively quickly. I don't know. D1 athletes, there's very few out there. There are some. There might be some actually that are in the Zoom today, or future D1 athletes. So it is important to know this, but so if you want to go D1, you have to take courses. You have to get 16 core courses while here at Lutheran High or in high school. And they must be 4 years in English, 3 years in math, 2 years in natural physical science, 1 year what they call additional, which is English, math, or natural physical science, 2 years of social science, and 4 more additional years. So that's your 16 credits. This is less credits than what you need to graduate high school. High school credits, though, the ones that you need to graduate, say Lutheran High, would include some other courses that you're taking. The NCAA sanctions certain courses that they want you to see how you're doing in those courses. They don't care that you take men's health or women's health or men's Christian decisions or whatever, and choir. They don't care about those courses as far as like how you are academically. So your actual GPA is not accurate for the NCAA. They care about your GPA in these courses. So which courses are NCAA approved? We have a list. You can actually check that list. I'll talk about that at the end. You can check that list, what courses are NCAA approved, and you can make sure you're taking the right courses. I know Mrs. Nofsey is aware of this. She sets your guys' schedules up to make sure that you're accomplishing these types of things. But that is something that I would specifically sit down with you and go through, and I'll talk about how to kind of calculate all this information and to kind of make sense of it. But you're off to a good start. If you're a freshman and a sophomore, you're off to a good start. Mostly comes down to like junior year when you have to maybe make some decisions on what kind of classes to take. But take these core courses. Don't take a light load and take, I don't know what we can even offer. They can't take 2 study halls. So you can only take 1 study hall anyway, but take courses that if you know you have to meet those standards, take those early, get those done, so that by your senior year, maybe you just have a couple courses to take, or maybe even not much at all. Okay, by your senior year, you have to have 10 or 16, or going into your, let's see here. Yeah, before the start of your 7th semester, which is your first semester your senior year, you have to have taken 10 of those 16 core courses. And that's what this all describes here. Okay, this is the sliding scale for full qualifier. If you want to qualify for a D1, let me explain quickly what this is. A lot of numbers here, but let's just go down to 3.0 GPA. By the way, this is a core course GPA. This would be your GPA that we calculate. That includes those core courses we were talking about here with this slide. So we're going to use all those courses, what your grades were, how many credits you earned. We're going to calculate a core GPA. That core GPA then is going to be compared against an SAT and or ACT scores. So you can see if you have a really high core GPA, your SAT and your ACT scores don't need to be very high. But as your core GPA drops, your SAT and ACT scores have to be better. So basically, they want to know that you know something. Okay. So your ability to get good grades, well, might just because you're a little bit lazy at turning homework in, but you know you're a pretty smart person. You can prove that through standardized testing. And so if your standardized test scores are good, then that's what they need. So you have to meet those minimum requirements for those scores at that GPA. Okay, there is an academic red shirt section here. That would be if you're super low in those scores, you can be academic red shirts. Okay, D2, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this because it's very similar to the D1, slightly different expectations, less English. For one, off the bat, you can see that right away. But I think they add one somewhere else. I can't remember exactly where. So you have to know if I'm a D1, I have to meet these requirements. If I think I'm a D2, I have to meet these requirements. Okay, again, here's the D2 sliding scale. I'm not going to go through that again. That's the same type of scale we saw with the D1. All right, moving on. This is the high school timeline. You guys have one of these when you came in. If you're on Zoom, you don't have one, but you can look at this. I also show you where all this information is. Go back to it and look at it later. But this is just this is put out by the NCAA, just a good timeline, good like, how do I pace myself? If I'm a freshman, what should I do now? If I'm a sophomore, what have I done or should have done, and what should I do at this point? So it gives you a nice, like, breaks it down into parts. So you don't have to feel like it's like drinking from a fire hose. Like, there's so much to know. What do I do? Just follow this timeline. Just keep track of those types of things that I need to get done. And so I'll let you kind of read through that on your own time. But as you can see, having an account by your sophomore year was one thing we talked about before. Continue to have those conversations with counselors, with me, making sure that you are taking the right courses and you're on track as far as core courses go. By junior year, you should be taking your ACT and SAT. You can take that as many times as you like. Communicate make sure you send those scores in to the counselor. And then you can take it again as your senior year. You can take the scores, see if you can improve on those. Okay. All right. Recruiting calendar. So one of the things that is important to know, and you kind of hope that your college coaches know these types of things, is when can they have contact with you? There's lots of rules, and the rules are put in place to make sure that everybody's on a level playing field. You're not supposed to give, coaches aren't supposed to give like Xboxes and like free cars to like kids to like recruit them. I know that probably happens. That's illegal, but there's rules set up to kind of prevent those types of things. When can I talk to that person? When can you talk to them? That kind of stuff. So officially June 15th after sophomore year, that's a big date as far as like coaches contact you, receiving recruiting materials, calling you, sending emails, setting up visits to go visit the school, doing tryouts, like all those different types of things is that date. As far as prior to that, you can make as many contacts as you'd like. You can email, you could call coaches. You have to be the instigator of the contact at that point. After June 15th, it's they're after you, potentially. All right, prior to, okay, I just mentioned that, junior, senior year, some rules on that. 1 tryout per institution, 5 official visits, things like that. There's official versus unofficial visits. Really what I want to do is just kind of direct you to pages 32 to 36 in the NCAA guide. In fact, let me see if I can do this. Let me pull up, I had this open on purpose so I can show you. All right, so this right here is the guide. It's pretty lengthy, it's pretty big. There's a lot of information in it, but if we scroll all the way down to 32 to 36, I'll at least give you guys a snapshot of where you can find this information. They have right here, they have definitions. It's kind of like a glossary of terms, I guess. What is a quiet period? What is an evaluation? What is the evaluation period? You know, all this information about, you know, what a visit would be, what kind of visits are there, unofficial versus official, that kind of thing. And then also, this is kind of important, is knowing the calendar, the recruiting calendar. And this is just for your kind of your own knowledge. You know, if you're men's basketball Division I, women's basketball Division I, football, ice hockey, lacrosse, softball, baseball. Let's see if they even have Division II stuff. Yeah, okay, so 2 and 3 information would be here. So it gives you all the rules, kind of just a real quick. So you can always just find your sport, find your level, read through it, make sure that that information fits what is actually happening. So 32 to 36 in the guide is where you would find the recruiting calendar. Okay, back to the slides here. Okay, national letter of intent. This is something that's kind of fun. If you're a D1 or D2 athlete, D3 does not have national letter of intent. It's a voluntary thing. We do it at our school a couple times a year. Basically, when you sign this letter, you are agreeing to attend that college for 1 academic year. And the institution agrees to provide you with financial aid. And at that point, once you sign, you are done with recruiting. And that's kind of a nice thing to do if that's something that applies to your sport, you and your sport and your team. And no NAIA, national letter of intent is only for D1 and D2, so you have to be one of those 2 in order to get that or to do that. Okay, before we get to questions, I do want to point out, go to that website. There's a website that I provided in the material just several slides ago called the NCAA Eligibility Center. So when you go to the Eligibility Center, you come to this website, and this is where you would register. So I should have probably shown you this when I was talking about it, but this is what you would click to register. And I think actually when you click on this, it gives you the option. Yep, there you go, just pulls it down. And then you got the option between, do I want to create an account, a certification account, or do I want to create a profile page? Those are the 2 things I was telling you about. Profile pages are free. They strongly suggest freshmen creating one. Most freshmen don't really know if they're good enough for D1 or D2 yet. That usually is determined in the next couple of years. So that might be a good thing to start with. And then if you know kind of how the recruiting process is going, where you're at with it, what coaches you've been in contact with, what level, and you know you're 1 or 2, this is where you want to have an account. But that does cost money, $90. You don't get refunded if you don't make D1 or D2. So that's something you want to consider. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes, I think, to fill that out. And you can save it and come back to it. That is possible. It gives you an ID number. That ID number is important as far as how the NCAA tracks you and your progress through this process. And coaches won't recruit you if you don't have an ID number, if at that level. And also, we have all that information here at the school. We can track what classes, what transcript, what your classes, or what academic things you've accomplished. We can also track scores and all that stuff through the school. So that's this page, and I'm not going to click on either of those. And then if you just Google search even the NCAA student guide or college-bound student athlete or whatever, you can get this pretty easily in the actually it's also in the NCAA site. So this has all of the information that I went through. It's got way more than even what I talked about. This is intended to basically focus on the recruitment process and the academic side of things. There are a lot of other rules and regulations that are maybe applied to certain people and not to others, so I didn't really focus on those. But you can kind of go through this and find the right page and find the information that you need. So there's very accessible. Back to the presentation. Okay, so any questions? So I don't know, has there been questions so far? Okay, at this point, if you would like to ask a question, I hope there's a few questions because I'm guessing there might be. So I want you to be brave enough to ask them. Do we want them to send a chat or just start talking? Okay, so you can unmute. I can hear you. You can start talking. If you have any questions, I will try to answer those questions.
Oh. Hello, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it was different this year because of COVID as far as the ACT and SAT scores go. Because I know that like my friends' kids who applied this year, like none of them had to submit anything and they got like scholarships and know where they're going. Was that only like a this year kind of thing?
That's a good question. I chose not to bring it up because it I didn't know if we would have those kinds of questions or the people who are in this Zoom meeting, if we'd have any seniors. So yeah, it's a good question. So the question was about COVID and like how that's affecting the SAT and ACT scores. So if you're a senior, you can actually get a waiver for because of COVID to take the ACT and SAT, and you can get, like what you were saying, you can get scholarships. They're not looking at those scores this year, so you can actually, I don't know how that's going to change next year. This could be an issue next year as well, and so maybe that continues for the next year of students or the seniors next year. But that is true. Yeah, there is they have waivers for that this year. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Do you have anything that what about it? Oh, okay. I gotta make sure I get this right. Okay, when you sign, is it when you sign up for the NCAA? Okay, when you sign up for the NCAA or you create your account and you have to choose the school, it's not called Lutheran High Parker, it's called Lutheran High School. And that's a common mistake because it used to be called that, right? And it's still in the system as an option. So you just want to click Lutheran High School. Is that it? Is it just Lutheran High School? Okay, Lutheran High School. So do not choose the Lutheran High Parker or Lu High Parker. That's wrong. And so if that is the case, then your information doesn't get to us. So that's a good point. Yes, thank you. Okay, any other questions? You guys all want to get off to watch the national championship game tonight? Is that what's going on? I guess I explained everything perfectly. I do encourage you to send an email, call me, however, probably email is the best. As far as like contacting me, I would love to sit down and look through your transcripts and kind of do all the calculations. Oh, I should point that out. There is a question I'll answer here in a second. I'm going to point this out real quick. There is and you guys got this information as you came in, but if you did not come in and get any of the handouts, everything that is a handout is in this packet. So this is one of the handouts right here. Okay, that was the timeline thing. Registering using the certification profile page, but the thing I wanted to talk about, if I didn't pass it yet, yeah, here. Calculating core course GPA. There's a worksheet. Here's the Division I worksheet. And this is something I would do to make sure that I would do all the calculations and determine what is your core course GPA, and also what areas we need to fill. So like, here's your 4 years of English. I would fill out however many English courses you've had. And these are things at our school, it's like, you know, freshman English or 9th grade English, American Lit, Brit Lit, things of that nature. And those will go in here. We would put however long that class credit is, and then put your grade, do the calculation that determines quality points. And then we divide that by the total number of credits that you've taken. And we do that for each of these areas. And then I can say, okay, well, you still need to do this, or you need to get this credit in this area. And that'll help you plan for probably more likely, you know, junior and senior year as you try to finish this out. So, okay, question? 2 questions here, okay.
Can you speak to how important it is to go to camps, especially with COVID?
That's a good question. As far as going to like showcases and those types of things, I'm assuming there are a lot less opportunities now than there was. And that is a personal decision that you would have to make if that's something that, if it's available, do you want to spend, if that's something you're worried about, maybe an exposure thing, then that's your decision. As far as like what the coaches and the universities who are recruiting you, what is their opinion on that? I don't know if I can really answer that question. But again, the athletic side of things, I would say rely on your high school club coaches and ask them what they're hearing. Because I don't think I can really speak to kind of how that's changed in the last year. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, second question. Okay, a couple more coming in.
What is the average sports scholarship for tuition as far as percentage of tuition?
What do you think? I don't know.
Well, it's not a full ride, as most people used to think. Full ride used to include tuition and room and board. Doesn't do that anymore. It's usually just for the tuition. And sometimes it's a portion, sometimes it's all, depends on your level, depends on the college and how much money there's available.
I know that there are
With honors courses, do you use the weighted grade or the unweighted grade?
I have to review that.
Oh. I get it. Okay. Should I talk? Okay. We do not use weighted grades. We have not submitted to NCAA a weighted grade option for our classes. And we have found in the years past that it hasn't been an issue for our students.
Oh yeah. Okay. I guess I was muted. So are there any other questions? Anything I could clarify? Anything related to the presentation that?
How do we get a packet if our students are Zooming?
Okay. If you are Zooming, how do you get the information presented today? I would say go to, like I said, this presentation, especially the academic side of things, was all based on this packet that you can access through the NCAA website. So let's see here. Once you create, I mean, I know you can create an account and get to that. You should have access to, let me, I just Googled the guide and I got to a site that allowed me to access it. So that's what I would do if I were you. NCAA.org would have this. You could click on it. You can pull it up, download it. You can print it off. You can just look at it through the computer, however you want to do it. But yeah, it's pretty easy to access. All that information is in there. I would definitely make sure you get the 2021 guide, as a lot of things have changed with COVID, just to make sure there are no, you're looking at old information. You don't want to be relying on that and then find out it's wrong. So make sure you're using the most up-to-date guide. Otherwise, your student is free to come see me at any time. I printed off 20 of everything and I've given out 1 of everything. So I've got 19 extras that I'd love to give out. So my room is room 109. Some of the students know me, some don't, but feel free to stop by, send them in, and I will give them everything that I was presenting today. And yeah, 2:15 office hours start. That's a good time. I'm always in my room 2:15 to 3. So I'm available right after school every day. Question, yes.
So in the future, when we like actually have tournaments and stuff, and like colleges come,
Yep.
are we allowed to like come up to them and talk to them? Because I've heard from different people like you're not allowed to do that.
You're a fresh. I think they have to initiate that with you, but I think they would. I don't really know what those types of. I wouldn't think so. If you're not after your sophomore year, you shouldn't be able to. They should not initiate that with you until you're going into your junior year. Do they talk to you at these tournaments?
Oh, I haven't been to one.
Okay. Yeah. According to the NCAA rules, they're not supposed to make that contact with you until then. You can if they're there, but they're not supposed to with you. Okay, any other questions? We're getting pretty close to the end of the hour. Appreciate all of you coming in and joining us for this presentation. Again, please communicate with me. Emails are great. I can sit down and talk with any and all of you. I can set up meeting times to kind of work through academic things or just answer any questions that you have. So with that,
I'm gonna send you your email.
okay, Mrs. Nofsy is going to send you my email address through the chat, and you can make sure you have that. That last name is a little tricky. Make sure you get all the Z's and the I's in the right spots. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay, so I will stick around. If you have questions as people are leaving, feel free to ask them. I will try to answer them. Once everybody's gone, we'll shut this down. Thanks again for coming. Have a wonderful evening.
Mr. Radzinski,
Yes.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my phone's on like a weird mode. I'm glad that you can hear me. So what happens if you don't really know your child's sport very well? So you don't know like who to reach out to or do something? Do you kind of just like put up videos?
What sport?
It would be a girls' golf.
Okay. And what grade is your child in?
10th.
9th grade?
10th.
So, 10th grade. Okay. So, definitely talk to your coach, your high school coach.
Okay.
They should be the most knowledgeable about that process, that side of things.
Okay.
And just, you know, as far as like getting recruited and getting exposed, they could tell you, well, go to this tournament. If you're good enough, you might be able to qualify for these tournaments or these I don't know how it works in girls golf. I'm trying to
I don't
use
either.
the right terminology, but I know there are things that
Okay.
you can play in that would give you the exposure to, like, people,
Okay.
college coaches could start recognizing your name, but a lot of times you have to be successful in the high school level too. So,
Right.
if your team is going to state, or she is going to state, or moving through the postseason, those types of players tend to get more exposure, because college coaches are looking at those types of teams and those types of players, because those are the ones they want. They don't want the ones that are scoring, like, have really, really high scores, and like their teams aren't doing anything in the postseason. So the success of the team and the individual themselves is going to provide a lot of that natural exposure. But again, you probably just need to rely on your golf coach and ask them, like,
Okay.
where are they how this process works. But again, I would say
Okay.
go find the, after having that conversation with the coach, what kind of schools would she, he could tell, or she could tell you what kind of schools she could play at, or based on his or her knowledge. And then what I would do is go to the websites of those schools, and I would find questionnaires at the athletic page and send those questionnaires in, fill them out, send them in, find the coach's email, send the email to the coach, and just say, we're interested in this. These are her scores. Create that conversation. And then
Okay.
from there, they could probably, like, things will start rolling in the right direction.
Okay, that's a good idea. I think what happened is that, like, we transferred over. So she made the team at her old high school, but
Okay.
never got to play because of COVID. And now here we are, our second year, and who knows if we're going to play again. So,
Right.
like, we haven't even gotten to play high school, even though she, like, made the team last year, but it was at a different school. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I think I'm just a little bit worried about that, I guess.
Well, she's only a sophomore, so
Yeah.
a lot of that recruiting was not going to happen until after this summer. And
Okay.
what she does in her sophomore or junior year is going to start pretty much giving those college coaches, like, they're going to know who she is if she's scoring well. But
Okay.
I'll just keep going back to talk to the coach, because they're going to be able to tell you, what direction to go as far as that goes.
Okay, great. And then as far as freshmen goes, that my freshmen play football, we didn't start making tapes for my son until, like, his junior or senior year, but you recommend, like, putting together a tape like every year, you think, and then posting it off of their huddle?
Yeah. So he's a freshman.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
your
they're
son
freshmen.
okay? Is this the Mastons?
Yes.
I figured it
Hello.
out.
That was easy.
Okay. I've talked to you before, so yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the girl, and then the transfer, and the two boys. So okay. Yeah. So, like, as freshmen, once they get into, I don't think that college coaches are going to really care until they're playing varsity. And so once they're in varsity, then you can kind of create that game
Okay.
film, those clips, and it's really junior, senior year. Junior's a big
Okay.
year for, especially if they're good enough. Senior year, if you're just starting, it gets too late. So make sure that you're
Okay.
starting that. I don't know, like, what they're
They
going
did
to be
freshman
doing.
and JV. They did both this year. So I
Okay.
didn't know if, like, JV mattered or if it doesn't. So we'll
No,
just see if
not
they do
really yet.
more varsity
Yeah,
next year.
the focus for freshmen really should be academics at this point, and just trying to get better at
Right.
their sport. The recruitment process is really doesn't really kick off until sophomore, junior year.
Okay.
So they've got time on that. We can
Perfect. So I'm not going to
definitely
worry
kind
about
of,
that.
right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
great. Thanks so much for helping.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for teaching the twins and Ncaa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Where's the last one? Oh. Okay, does anybody else have a question out there? Let's end it.